So this is a little clinic on using PowerPoint modeling. There's a small enough group here of us that my suggestion is that we kind of make this pretty informal. That if there's anybody's got any questions or wants to discuss anything, just stop me and let's discuss it there versus trying to do it at the end. Less kind of a clinic, more of a dialogue. So uh, I put this together because I found a lot of people ask, "Oh, how'd you do that?" And it turns out I use PowerPoint as kind of a tool in modeling. By the way, a lot of this is drawing. There are a bunch of commercial drawing tools available. You can do a lot of this in those. The reason I think PowerPoint is nice is twofold. It's really easy to store stuff. And a lot of us have been using it because we used it in work for years to do slides and stuff. So um, very quickly, what is PowerPoint? Obviously, it's a presentation tool. It's a slide formatting tool, but really within PowerPoint, what Microsoft has built is a drawing tool and allows you to draw what you put on slides because each slide you can think about as an individual drawing. So, if you've got a 30 slide presentation, you've got 30 drawings you're actually presenting. The tools that let you do a lot of things around scaling things, different kinds of objects. You can size things, you can scale things, you can align things. There's a fairly good sized object library you can draw from. And of course, it's really easy to import graphics into it. So you can grab a graphic item off the internet, bring it over and put it into a PowerPoint slide, which then becomes a drawing. And the cool thing is you can print it. The last line here is one of the things that's most interesting about PowerPoint. We never pay attention to this when we do a slide, but Microsoft, when they built PowerPoint, they actually built it as 300 dots per inch. So it's 300 DPI, regardless of the size of the slide. So if you do a normal slide, you're going to get 300 dots per inch for, if it's an 11-inch wide slide, that's going to be 300 times 11 or 3,300 DPI. What's interesting about PowerPoint is you can scale the slides to different sizes. I'll show you how to do that. And what that does is if instead of doing a slide that's 8.5 by 11, you make it 22 by 17, that same 300 dots per inch applies, but it's double the number of actual pixels in the image. And that resolution allows you to generate very sharp images when you go into post-processing for printing for either a signs or decals, etc. As I said, it's got great drawing tools, easy shapes. You can sketch things. You can put those together. You've got great standard outputs. Um, I like it for indexing image, and I'll kind of show you how to do that. It's easy to find things in it because, if you think about it, if you've got a slide presentation with 20 slides, those are 20 drawings, you can drop back into the slide sorter tool, and you can then see all the drawings and pick the one you want to look at. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a bunch of things that are kind of broken up into some little areas. So first, talk just about basic shapes and sizing. And I'm kind of assuming everyone has used PowerPoint. You can actually, if you don't want to use PowerPoint, if you'd like to use the Google slide version that's available on Google Apps. Almost all of this applies to this. You can use the PowerPoint online version, which is generally free to a lot of people. You can get access to it. So, when you have a slide, if you go into PowerPoint today, if you're on your computer and you open PowerPoint up and you create a new slide, that slide will be created as a 16 by 9 image. It's 7.5 inches high by 13.33 wide. White background is best. If you're doing a slide presentation, that works well. But if you're going to use this as a drawing tool, what you can actually change two things very quickly in PowerPoint. The first thing is up at the upper left. You can change the layout. And in the center, you've got the drawing objects. So if we look at that, click up here on the upper left, and it brings down this window and allows you to select a blank object. Because if you're doing a drawing to do a decal, you don't really need the background text. That literally turns it into just a drawing and eliminates all the slide tools that PowerPoint kind of overlays on the drawing. And then over here on the right, this little object up here, if you click on that right here, it will bring down all these shapes. At the top, it's got your recently used shapes, which is kind of the standard version of that. But as you use shapes, they'll appear up here. and you can see lines, rectangles, basic shapes, arrows. I'll go down through this. There's a set of things. Obviously, we're not using a lot of action buttons or callouts, but things like stars and banners you can actually use in doing a presentation. So the other thing that's really important, if you do an object in PowerPoint, so this is a square. You create a square by clicking on up here on the square object, bring it down, and make it a square. If you go into the shape format at the top, so the way PowerPoint works is up here at the top, there's a set of tools. And if you've got a shape and it's highlighted, you can click on shape format and you get the shape format tools up here at the top. Those shape format tools up at the top give you the capability of changing the color of the shape. If it's a text object, you can edit the text. You actually see over here on the right, you've got the height. You can do the align, you can align it to other objects. You can move it and position it and send it backward and forward. The other thing you can do is if you have an object and you right click on the object and click on this size and position button, what that lets you do is it opens up a format shape window on the side here that lets you do the same thing. So this is nice because you can look at where the object, the size of the object, and the rotation of the object. So for example, if you're putting something on and you want to rotate it a little bit, typically if you grab this handle up here at the top of the object, you can rotate it, but it's kind of free motion. So getting it right where you want it. What you can do over here is you can use this rotation tool to move it a degree at a time. So like if you're doing a drawing of a turntable and you want to actually show the tracks in two positions, you can actually vary the angle between those by 15 degrees. So it lets you actually do some very accurate drawings in terms of this tool set. The other thing that's really important is to understand layering. So in PowerPoint, every object is layered, and that it basically keeps track of things and puts some objects in front of other objects. So if you look here again if we start in that tool up at the top, the format shape tool, if you pick an object, this is the circle, you'll notice that these two buttons appear, which is move forward and move backward. And so what you can do is click there, and you can actually, if you don't have that window open, you can click to order objects, and you can bring an object to the front, send it to the back, or you can bring it forward or send backward. So it's not really easy to see this, but if you've got 10 objects on the screen, PowerPoint is keeping basically an index and saying which objects is first and which objects is on the bottom. And you can take the object on the top and you can move it all the way to the back, or you can move it back one, in which case it'll just move back. So it's a really easy way of, if you're doing some sort of a SketchUp or drawing, to control where the things are and how they relate to each other. So those are kind of the basic tools. Now I'm going to stop and say, does that make sense? Can everybody kind of understand those thought processes? I hope everybody's kind of used some of these things before as they've built slides and stuff. So any questions, comments?
All makes sense, Phil. I've used that quite a bit.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, but it's a way of just thinking about your drawing is a page. You've got a sheet of a drawing. There's a bunch of objects on it, and you can maintain their relationship to each other either by aligning them or by the layering. Those are kind of the two things to think about. So the one thing that I found years ago in PowerPoint is this idea that if you want to create an image, don't think about making PowerPoint slide the size of the image you want to make. Think about making the PowerPoint slide the size based on the resolution of the image you want to make. So, if you go up here in the PowerPoint slide and you click on design, it will open up basically a window that says, when you click on design, this window will open up here. You notice you get kind of a whole bunch of choices of background, and people who are doing slides, this is all the stuff you want. But what we're really interested in as a tool is this little window that shows over here that basically allows you to do slide size. And if you click on slide size over here on the right, it'll open three things. It'll give you a choice of either what's called normal resolution, 4:3, the old television resolution, or widescreen. But what is interesting is right below that, it gives you a thing that says custom slide size. And as you click on that, this is the window that will open. And you'll notice that because that when you do a slide, it's widescreen, 13.33 by 7.5. You can choose whether it's portrait or landscape. That may be important depending on how you want to print it. Portrait says that it's narrow and tall. Landscape says it's thinner and wide. And so if you go in there, you can now begin to format your slide. So if we click on the custom over here, we can click on custom from here. This little window will open and it lets you choose the size of your slide. So you can make a slide that's up to 56 inches by 56 inches. So, if you stop and think about that, that's a huge slide. Why would you want to do that? One of two reasons. Either you want to print something that's 56 inches by 56 inches, or you want to print something at higher resolution. So you can come in here and make any size you want in this window up to 56 by 56. So if you take a slide, for example, and make an 11 by 8 foot 8.5 inch sheet, that's basically 10 inches by 7.5 is the print area. So you're getting 3000 by 2250 DPI. So, nice, but it's 300 DPI. Most home printers are 300 DPI, but a lot of professional commercial printers are 600 DPI. If we basically say, instead of doing that size slide, I'm going to make that 4 times larger. So 44 by 34 inches, that has changed. Notice, if you look on this slide, notice the lines on this slide, how far apart they are. Those are 1-inch boxes. Down here, you notice they're much closer together and if you look at the ruler up here at the top, and I didn't show you how to turn the ruler on. We can talk about that if anyone doesn't know how to do it. You can set the ruler on. In the view, you can turn on rulers. You'll actually see that this is 44 inches wide here. Because the print area is 40 by 30 inches, again, 300 DPI, this is 12,000 by 9,000 DPI. So if you take these two outputs, you create a JPEG or a PNG, and you take it to a printer, this one is going to print at 4 times the resolution. So if you've got a really good 1200 DPI commercial printer, you're now getting a very high resolution print. So to give you an example of this, if you look at a 6x4 image, why are 6x4 images interesting? Because it's a great way to make signs. I go to my local camera shop, Mike's Camera. I think there are a few in the Bay Area. They have a printer that's a high-end printer for doing prints for people. So if you take prints with your camera, obviously today most of our cameras are taking pictures that are, if you look at them, 3 to 5 megabits. They're very high resolution prints. They therefore have a high resolution. I think they're typically 1200 DPI printers. So they print a 4x6 slide. You can get a matte 4x6 slide for 70. I think it's about 75 cents. So if you take a JPEG or a PNG image that is an image to them that's a 1200 DPI image, they're going to print it for you at very high resolution. So compared to printing things at home, you're getting a much higher resolution image. To do that, if we take a 4 times, so rather than 600 DPI, let's go to 1200 DPI to be safe, because generally with computers today, the size of these things doesn't really matter very much, either to store them or transmit them. So if we make that slide 4 times the size of the 6x4 image, it becomes a 24 by 16 inch slide. That's 7200 by 4800 pixels. So if you look at that slide, this is actually what you would have on the screen. This square, right, which is actually, if you look at it, 4 boxes, right, because it's 4 times larger, this square is a 1x1 print output. This is the typical 16-point font that you see in PowerPoint. You notice how small the text is. This is a sign, actually, I laid out for printing out and putting on a building, on a station. And this is in O scale. It's 5 feet long, because you'll notice it's 5 inches long. One of the nice things about O scale when you do this is, if you do it right, every one of these blocks is 1 foot, because it's 1/4 inch to the foot 4 times. So very important, just that kind of that ratio of size. You can do the same thing if you want to do an 8.5 by 11 decal. and talk to you about how to print decals in a little while. But let's say we want to do an 8.5 by 11 decal. Again, we want to do it at high resolution, even though maybe the printer is only 600 DPI. We want to make it a 1200 DPI and make sure we get the best possible image from the printer. You make the slide a 44 by 32 inch slide, and your result is that you get a 13,200. Now, if you look at it, the thing that's really important to remember is that the ruler now shows you the slide. You have to, in your mind, or I'll show you how to just put some background lines in to actually show the real size, so that that 1x2, that 1x1 box that in this slide looks that size is in this side going to be that size. Because again, we've got the number of inches here is based on the size and the ratio. One thing that's important, is probably important to think about when you save an image. You're offered different options in how to save it, and there really are three options, and it's kind of your choice of which one you want to use. You can use PNG, JPEG, or PDF. Those are typically the images that people take when you want to print something. I tend to use PNG. The raw images are generally pretty lower than JPEG, but if you look here, JPEG and PNG are significantly larger a lot of times than PDF. PDF is a kind of a thing that's designed to resolve it down and print it, and it will be much lower resolution. So I would recommend using either PNG or JPEG. I almost use PNG exclusively. It seems to me you get better resolution out of it, but it's really kind of your choice. But you can kind of see the size of the slides. This is an example of a specific slide. This is a decal slide. It's a 22 by 17 slide, so this is being done at 600 DPI. If you save it in PNG, it's about 2.5 meg, a little under 2 megs in JPEG. As PDF is only 202K. PDF is resolving this down actually to a smaller resolution, which is really why you want to save these things in PNG and JPEG. So any questions on that about how to kind of scale slides to get higher resolution? Make sense? I don't know. Has anybody ever done this before to print? I mean, I see a lot of people when they print things out, they just, go to the letter, do the 8.5 by 11, then print it on your home printer. That's going to give you 300 DPI. But when you go to use it in a model, especially for a sign that's maybe a half an inch tall, it just doesn't have that crisp resolution that we want to see when we get close to it in a model. So this allows you to get that much closer, much better resolution. So what I want to do was actually show you a couple of items on how to sketch in PowerPoint and kind of how to do two quick little objects in PowerPoint. So the two objects I want to talk about here are doing a railroad crossing sign. So let's say we want to do a railroad crossing sign, and we want to do a logo based on the Missouri Pacific lines. So it turns out PowerPoint gives you a lot of cool sketch tools to do this. So if you look at doing a railroad crossing sign, we go online, we found our railroad crossing sign we want to use. We need to print these two things out for our railroad crossing sign. We kind of get the size of it here. We see it's 48 inches. So what we can do now is we can generate a slide. Again, if we're going to print this, for example, at a printer, we're going to use that 6x4 slide, either as 12 by 8 or 24 by 16. One of the things I've found that's really good is you can actually put the text in, and then you can put in these boxes. So what I'm going to do here is I think I've got another presentation here I'm going to bring up. I'm going to bring this over here so you guys can see this. So this is a slide here. This is a slide. You'll notice I want to show you just a couple of things on this. From a design perspective, the slide size here we're doing is just 10 by 7.5. So I've just left this because I'm not worried about resolution. I've just left it in the normal size just to do the demonstration. But this is very simple. Railroad. If I go up here to home, I can now see the text. I've chosen Barlow. I looked at that. That was a text that I thought looked pretty well to match what was there, what I found on the sign. So I've typed in railroad and crossing. Now, if you look at Got to go find it here. When I print this out, I want to cut it out. The problem is if I put a box around this that's the size to cut it out, I'm going to potentially have a line there trying to cut it. So what you can do is you can make a box. So this box here, you notice is just a square. And what by putting that, aligning that where I want it, and on the railroad, I've actually put on the words railroad, if you look at the background, the shape fill there is going to be white. I'll make it red here so you can see the difference. See, that's red, but I made it white. So what that does is that's on top. I've moved that to the top, right? Again, arrange, bring to front. You see the box there, arrange, send to back. So when I print this out now, the print will actually have these red lines on it. What you can do now is you can just align your straight edge and use your X-Acto knife or whatever you're using to cut. So when you cut, you're going to get a nice cut right along that line, but you're not going to have any lines on the print. So the things that's really nice to do when you do a sign like a railroad sign or something where you just want a white background, a station sign, something like that, you can actually use these kind of hidden lines to align it. So that's an interesting way to kind of do this. What we'll do is just walk through this very quickly. This is a set of tools of how to produce something. So let's say for example, I want to do a Kansas Pacific Lines. My model railroad is named Kansas Pacific Lines. I like this Missouri Pacific Lines logo I've found, and I want to replicate that into a logo. So to do that, and I'm going to actually just jump on a slide here, jump on a slide here to show you how to do this. So if I take that logo, I'm going to copy it and bring it over here. So this is the logo that I want to replicate. So I would take you through a few steps of how you would replicate that logo. One of the things that I wanted to show you and how to do this is to show you how to use a color analyzer. So if you go on, you can grab this URL out of the slide presentation, or I can throw it in the chat. But basically, this is a color analyzer. And let me bring it up here. I did not bring it up. I should have brought it up before. So this is a little tool. It's actually from the UK. It's intended to be used for people to look at the visibility of text on a background. So it turns out there are certain requirements for how visible things are for people with degraded vision, and you can actually measure that. What's really cool about this tool is, if we come back again to our test presentation here, if I take this tool, I can take this little eyedropper here, and I can bring it out here on the slide. I got to find the right place. This is not working. Because I've got two screens, it gets weird on where you can do this. I'm not finding it. Hang on. Okay. So there, I actually grabbed it over on the other screen. So normally if you're on one screen, you just take this eyedropper and you move it out. You notice what I've done is I've grabbed this color here. And that color, you'll notice it gives me the RGB value of that color. So what that allows me to do is it allows me to actually create an object with that color by using these numbers. So again, if I want to replicate this image, make this a little bit smaller so we can see it better. So I walk through the kind of the steps to produce this. So obviously I want a circle out here at the outside. So if I go up here, I can get the circle tool. I can use the circle tool to make a circle. By the way, if you don't hold the shift key down, when you take the circle tool, you'll notice it creates basically an oval object. But if you hold the shift key down, it'll make it a circle. So that's one of the things is the shift key when you create objects generally makes everything match. So, I can create an object here that's just a circle. You notice it was produced because the way this PowerPoint is set up, it always does it with the blue fill. Because I want to do the gray background, I can do the gray background. Again, I can use that color tool to get the gray background. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pick a gray over here. So let's say I do that gray background. Now I want to do, let's say, the red around the outside. So I'm not going to try to create a gray line around the outside. I want to turn the line on the outside of this circle to match that red line over there. To do that, you do two things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up that color analyzer, and it says 147, 83, 70. So what I'm going to do is go to the shape outline. Man, I got to pull that up. I didn't remember what it was. I'll move it to my other screen. You guys can't see it, but that way I'll have the number. So if I go over here and I do the shape fill, it's going to be shape outline, go down here to where it says more outline colors. And more outline colors lets you do two things. There are some standard colors, so you can pick some standard colors that are available. If you want to pick a color and say, for my railroad, I'd rather have it be this color, you can pick any one of these colors, or you can go over to custom colors. If we go to custom colors and we enter what we got from that tool, 147, 83, these are the RGB color numbers. So if you do anything with colors, this is one way of color indexing. When I enter those, you'll notice the color that I get here is going to be a color that matches over here. Then the other thing I can do is click on shape outline, and I can make the weight of the line. When you go into PowerPoint, you'll notice it says weight, and I can make it that big. But if I want to make it larger, I can go in here and click on weight. And at the bottom, it shows more lines. And that brings up that format shape window we looked at before. You can get that same window by right-clicking on the object and clicking format shape. So right-clicking on any object in PowerPoint brings up all these lines. If you're a Mac user, you have to use whatever the right-click is in Mac. I never can remember what it is, but if you bring up format shape, it brings up this window. And you notice there are three things here. There's basically the object type. This is the fill and the line for the object. So you can see both the fill there and the line. The fill, you'll notice, is the gray we chose, and the line down here. It also lets you do the size. So we can actually look at the size of that object and see how big it is. One of the things, just as a side tool, if you do size, notice down here you can lock the aspect ratio. If you click that, what that means is now if you scale this, regardless of what you do, it will always stay as a circle. So now if we go back to the line, if you just look down through here, you'll notice that there actually has the width, the size of the line. So I want to make this line about the same as that line there. Looks to me like maybe I should let's make it 8 points. Oh, that looks pretty good. So what we've done literally in about 30 seconds is we've recreated the outside of this object. Now, if we want to make it the same size, obviously we can come over here and we can do a little scaling. And now we've got the outside of our Missouri Pacific logo. So now the next question is, how do we put this inside in? So again, one of the nice things about the tools is if you come up here in the tools, you'll notice that there are lots of very interesting tools down here. And I realize this is not very good because of the resolution. You'll notice that there's these stars, and they start with, a 4-point star, 5, 6. You go all the way over here to the right. What this does, and again, I'm going to hold the shift key down, is it creates essentially a nice little angled drawing. Now I'm going to go over here. Again, what I'm going to do is lock the aspect ratio. And then I'm going to come back over here. And because if I look here at these points, I want those points the same color as my outside here. So if I click on this, I go up here to shape fill. Just look for these. If you're in the shape format, you'll find it right up here, shape fill. What you'll see is recent colors. The most recent color I had was this one here, which is the color I use for the outside here. And I think I didn't get exactly the right color, but that's okay. The other thing is, if you look at these points, you notice these over here are fairly small. These are fairly tall. When any of these objects, you'll see generally these yellow dots, and those allow you to configure the relative shape. So this yellow dot, the only one that appears on here, allows you to change the relative angle of those points. If we go up here and we add in another shape, let me pick a different shape, one that maybe you've used before, like this shape here, which is a pointer. You'll notice there are multiple yellow dots here. This yellow dot right here is the angle of determines the angle of the bow there. This yellow dot right here determines the angle, the size of the arrow, and this yellow dot down here is the size of the line. So when you see these objects, look at where those dots are on the object, because they let you kind of configure the object to how you want it. Very simply, just look for the yellow dot. So again, I want to come over here and look at this, and I say, gee, I want to have that be about the same as those. That looks pretty good to me right about there. So now I bring this over here. Again, because I've locked the aspect ratio, I don't have to hold the shift key down. It will just stay as a circle, and I can bring it over here, and I can basically position it. And there's an alignment tool. I can align it with this other circle, but I'm not going to use the alignment tool. I think I want it a little bit smaller than that, so I'll do it about like that. One of the things you can do is you can click on this. If you hold the shift key down and select both of these, you can see the relative alignment here. This is how I usually do it. And you can see that, gee, I need to move this one over a little bit this way, up a little bit this way, and now they're pretty well aligned. So you can see that those two there, I made one more up. I use the arrow key for that, by the way, moving it. So now those are pretty well aligned, and you see that pretty much matches what we have over here. Then the next thing I've got to do is I've got to create this circle right here. Obviously, the simple way to do that is I do use the circle tool again. So come back up here, select the circle tool, do a circle. I get my what I want to do with this circle, again, I generally always want to go over and lock the aspect ratio right away. What I want to do is create on the outside of the circle, the shape outline. I want to use that same gray we use. I want to make it, again, jump down here. I want to make it the same 8 points I did to match the outer circle there. And then I don't want the blue fill, right? It works out pretty well there, you notice, but I don't want blue on the center. I can do one of two things. I can either make the shape fill the red color, or I can make the shape fill essentially go down here and go no fill, which means you're actually seeing the color behind through that shape. Now, it looks to me like maybe I'd make that a little bit smaller. I make it because I made the line bigger there. So I can make it a little bit smaller there like this. And so now all I've got to do is go put in the Missouri or my Kansas Pacific lines. So to do that, again, I go back up here to the drawing tools. One of the drawing tools you'll notice is basically text. So I can come down here and I can put text. If you put the text here, it's going to put it co-joined with the object underneath. So what you want to do is you want to start typing right out here. So I say, okay, I want Kansas Pacific. Hang on. It'd be nice if I could type. So basically, I've got my text there, but obviously it's not really what you want for a couple of reasons. We don't know if it matches this. We want to center it. If you've ever done PowerPoint, you know these tools or used Word. This toolbar up here lets you center things, so we can center that text. We can scale it up a little bit. And then what you can do is you can now take and just choose a font that matches what you've got over here. So if I want to match this font, what I will do is come up here and pick a font. Lots of interesting fonts to use here in PowerPoint. We can use band shrift. That might look a little bit like it. I'm not going to worry too much about this because it really depends on what you're replicating. But one of the beauty is that you have lots of fonts. I think the Barlow compressed looks pretty good there. We're going to try Barlow again. The extra bold. I kind of like that. Now we basically grow that. We want it maybe a little bigger. Excuse me. So now if we bring this over here, and once we get it over there, now we can change the text font. You can do that either here on this home tool, which is basically the basic toolboard in PowerPoint. You notice the font right here. I can set the font color there, or I can click on shape format. And over here, I've got the text fill. This is more powerful because this lets you do a text fill. For example, I can put the gray in that we had as our text fill. This also, though, lets you do a text outline. So if you want to, you can actually outline the text, and it treats the whole text thing like essentially an object you can integrate with. So basically what we've done is, and this would be a little cleaner if we took a little more time, but you notice we've been able to replicate in about 5 minutes and create a logo. So, it's a really easy way to do some of those things in a tool. Any questions on that? Does it make sense? You got to play with it a little bit. Once you played with it, you'll find it's really easy to use. And by the way, I'll put this text in. This is that contrast analyzer. If you do anything with PowerPoint or any tools in a computer, it's a great way to grab the color off a slide and replicate it. So one of the things that I find very interesting is you can get an amazing amount of art on the internet to use, objects that you can use in modeling. So, you can do direct internet searches. If you do a direct search, focus on images. Then you bring them over and you can, for example, you might find an object that you really like the object, but you want to change the text in the object. So, let's take an example. Let's say we want to have a railway express sign. We're going to put a railway express sign on our building. How would we go find that? So, the first step is we go to Google and we say we want to see railway express agency. And you can even add sign if you want to, because if you say I want a sign, it's going to pick out sign kind of logo. So if we do that, this is what you typically see in PowerPoint, or excuse me, in Google search. What Google gives you at the top is a bunch of sponsored images. Those are all things that are for sale. You may want to use those, but looking through them is kind of a challenge. Then it shows you images. What I always do is I always just click on this little object, this little tab right here. So this is all of Google's output. If you click on images, you just get images. And so what you see now is there's a fairly large number of options as you scroll down through here. Gee, maybe this one on eBay looks pretty good. When you click on the object, it opens this window. This window actually shows you two things. It shows you where it is, but more importantly, if you move over the item, it shows you the pixel size of the item. So this is a 500 by 572 pixel item. If I'm going to reproduce that as a 2-foot, 3-foot high sign in HO scale, that's going to be at about 1200 DPI. So that's pretty good resolution. You can go visit the site. If you click here and visit the site, it'll open the site and you can get that. But this object on the site is the same object. Now you'll notice this has all sorts of weirdness on it and back and forth, makes it hard to use. What's interesting about Google is they're sucking the object off the site and storing it. And you can just go over here and use the right click, right? Which allows you to copy the image. So what we've done is effectively we've copied that image. Now we can go back to this is my little demo slides. We can go in here, we can create a new slide. And if we paste that, and just as a hint, by the way, Control C on your computer will copy the selected object. Control V will print it. So I just type Control V, and that prints that object in. Now, if you look at that object, you notice the size of this slide up here is that about 7 inches, or excuse me, about 10 inches wide. This is actually a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet. So, if you look at this, it's about, look up here, 3 inches. We're about 6 inches, a little under 6 inches wide, 5.5 inches wide that it comes in. Now, obviously, you can take this and you can scale it up and down. One thing that's really important in PowerPoint, even though I did that, this object from a PowerPoint perspective is still the same size it was when it was pasted in. The way PowerPoint keeps objects is they're always the same slide. That's why if you make a PowerPoint slide presentation and you import a bunch of pictures, you all of a sudden realize you have a 100 megabit slide presentation. So even though you shrunk the object, PowerPoint is still storing that object full size. So if you've got an object you've stored and you say, I want to make it bigger, you can go Control C, Control V. That just copied it and grow it up. And this object will still be the same resolution as the original one, even though I shrunk it, copied it, and made it bigger, because the copy is the same size as the original. So basically, you can do this for lots of things. Another example here is, let's say you're doing an office. It's 1935, and you say, how can I go find some things for my office? I want to find some calendars, posters, trade advertisements, signs, paperwork, things to put in the object. So, here are some objects that I found. This is a January 1935 calendar. Visit Cuba, because you could still visit Cuba in 1935. A auto spark plug sign. So again, if we come back to Google, we just open a new window. Why does somebody say something you'd like to see as a sign? You're modeling. Somebody have something they'd like to have as a sign or an object in a model to put into a model. Anybody got something interesting? Let's go see if we can find something. Not much interest there. So let's say we decided we're doing 1950. So we're doing 1955 advertisement. So again, if we go into images in 1955 advertisements, what we're getting here is a lot of kind of magazine kind of ads. Though, what we could do is we could be advertisement sign. So you just try different types of inputs, and now we see some metal signs. So for example, here's a Chrysler metal sign. So again, if you decide you like that, you can now pick that object out, or we can go back like we talked about. And actually when you open these, they open the website automatically, even though it's in images. Let's see what we can find here that's down here that's interesting. And just keep looking through these. Here's a Coca-Cola Cowgirl cardboard sign. And a lot of these, they're not going to be really usable because they're not taken at the right angle. But a lot of them actually can be very used. So, this one here, that's a baseball card. Not having good success here with this. Let's make this advertising. Because sometimes if you just change the kind of the format of what you've got, you'll get different items. Let's do car advertising. Let's see what we get if we do car.
Try beer.
Beer, you want to do beer? There we go. Beer is a good one. How about this ham sign? So this one's kind of, that looks okay. Maybe we'll try that. Let's see if we grab that one. So if we grab this sign, again, copy the image, then we can come back over to our presentation and we can put a new slide in and put that sign in. Now, this kind of has this kind of deteriorated outside, but that actually might look good on your, on the side of a building or as a sign, especially if you're going to kind of weather it around it. So basically, that's how you can find objects and do different pieces. So the way to think about this is that it's a process. You've got a design tool. If you look at the TechLine logo, that was actually built doing exactly this set of techniques. What that will generate when you get done, you can generate an image. You can then take that to your printer at home, but generally your printer at home is not the best printer to use for two reasons. One, most of us have inkjet printers. Inkjet printers are actually water soluble. So the print you make is actually not that is not that solid long term. They also tend to fade. Like I said, when we're talking about getting the photos printed, photo printing's better. If you want to do decals, you really don't want to do those on an inkjet printer. They'll sell you inkjet decal paper, but the reality is when you put it in water, you tend to lose the image. And then we'll talk a little bit about edge finishing and that. Now, the way you do this, you can basically save an object in PowerPoint two ways. If you make this object the size of the slide, so again, I put it up in the corner. I'm going to go ahead and I'm holding the shift key down so this comes out. If I, for example, made this like this, so it's the size of the slide, if I save this as a slide, so I click File, Save As, and when you save it, you can save it over here as a PNG image. So you're saving that slide as a PNG. And I'm going to make this demo slide. I'm going to make this, let's say this is beer ad. So if I save that, it's going to save that as a single PNG. And you notice what it does, it says, do you want to save the whole thing or just this one slide? So if I save just that one slide, I'm going to go ahead and open it up here. So that's actually the beer ad we saved. So, by the way, if you want to do it this way, one thing I do a lot of times on these is I'll take the slide here and you can put a square. So draw a square and make the square the size of the slide. And then take that slide and say no fill and make a red outline. And you notice I got to get it to the right size. It needs to be actually just the size of the slide. So now that shows me the outline of the slide. Now when you move this over, I need to make the red line darker. So I need to make this heavier so you guys will be able to see it. So again, shape, outline, weight, black. You'll notice now I can see exactly where the slide is. So if I say, I'm going to go ahead and take this hams thing and I'm going to make it that size, right? Now, when you go to save this, you want to get rid of the red line. So I'm going to click on the red line there. There it is. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to now do the same thing. I'm going to do File, Save As, click here, and choose PNG, or you can choose JPEG, whichever you want. I wouldn't choose TIFF because not many printers will take a TIFF file. And I'm going to save that again. And I want just this one. And now I'm going to go over here. And you'll notice now that image that hang on, I'm going the wrong way. There it is. So you notice now that image I've cut out all the brown because I've just taken what's on the slide. And again, that's fairly high resolution. The other way you can save an image in PowerPoint is you can click on this image. If you do a right click, it opens this window on the image, on the little image block, and you notice you can save it as a picture. So you can take anything you've got and you can just save it as a picture wherever you want. So there are two ways to save images. You can save the entire slide, which is generally what I do when I'm producing things, or you can take the single image and just save it as an object. So let's talk real quickly about how you produce a sign. So let's say I want to produce a set of signs. Again, we're going to produce these as a 4x6 object. I use Mike's camera. There's a Mike's camera in Dublin. There are a couple other in the Bay Area. They allow you to upload a picture. You can select a 4x6 matte image. I generally print two of them when I do it. They're 75 cents each. So for $1.50, you get them. This is actually a slide down here that you see. This is actually the image being printed. This is what you get over here. You upload the image. You select what your print size you want. There's 4x6 glossy, or down here in most 4x6 matte. To do the images, what I do is I create a slide. Again, if you look at this slide for these, this is a 56 by 37.33 image. So it's producing a incredibly high resolution image that I'm sending them. What I've done is in the background here, what you'll see is there are red lines. Those red lines are actually produced on the slide as a kind of let's call it a scaling. So if you go file, I'm going to do a new slide. I do a blank presentation. Let's say I'm going to make this, instead of doing the side I did, I'm going to make it custom slide size. I want to make this 4x6, so 24 wide, and 4x4 is 16 inches high. So what I'm doing is I'm doing an image, and this basically, you don't have to worry about this when you do it. It's how it changes objects. I come over to home, I come over to layout, and I put blank. So now I have my blank canvas. So, let's say we're going to let's go back here and take an object we had. I'm going to grab our beer sign. And I'm going to jump over to the one we just created, the little larger one. I'll put my beer sign in there. The problem is, how big is that beer sign? So here's a little quick tip. If you go up here to view, so these tools up here, if you ever play with this, play with them, but view is really important. In view, there's a thing called the slide master. So if you click on view and go to slide master, these are all the types of slides you have. We're not going to use any of these slides. The only one we're going to use is this one here, so we'll worry about this. So first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the titles on the bottom because I don't care about those. And now what I want to do is I want to put some lines on here. And so the easy way to do this is I come over to home and I put a line and I say, okay, this line, I'm going to put a line at 0. I'm holding the shift key down so that line is straight. Make that line red. I'll make it a little bit more weight so we can see it better. And now if I look on this slide, I know that because I made it 4 times as large, right? This line is here. I can copy it and move that line over to here. And then I copy it again. Oh, I'm sorry. I blew that. I hit Z, which erases it instead of. So I put it at 4 inches. And then I can actually copy both of these together. I only got one. And put it at 8 inches. And if I put lines on the drawing at each of those points, when I close the master view and come back here, you'll notice those lines are 1 inch apart. So if I want this object to be 1 inch wide, I'm in O scale, 1 inch is 4 feet. I want this sign to be 4 feet. If I scale it to between the lines, now when it prints, it's going to print 1 inch wide. Again, you don't want those red lines when you print. The easy way to get rid of those is you just go over to the slide here and click where it says format background. You can hide background graphics and those red lines go away. So now when I print this slide, it's actually going to print just the objects on there. If I want to go reorient them, I can do that. So if you look at this slide here, this is a slide I did for the modules, the buildings I built on the modules. You'll notice I brought down the Spreckles Sugar Dew. I've got some signs there. These are some things to hang in an office up here, some different signs. These are some wall signs, Railway Express Agency. If I take this and print this out as a 4x6 object, you get all these signs that are in this room are all printed on that one single sign. And so, it becomes very easy to do these for lots of different things. You want Western Telegraph, Western Union signs on a building. Um, these signs over here were actually created in PowerPoint using the same kind of, you can see kind of here, these are circles that are oblong and different shapes all laid together, and then producing the Standard Oil thing. That again is produced and then cut out, and that becomes a sign on the end of a building. Um, you know, I use these for signs that you put. I print these out and put them on the side of a module. So if you want to put a sign, do not touch or something about a module, you can do that. So if you go to see the modules at a show, they all have these little signs on them. Each one of these, you get 3 of these typically out of a 6x4 photo. One of the things is when you print these and you go print them out, because they're printed on a photo print, they're relatively thick. And the way you can do that is you take this edge, and what I did was I bought a box of, and I had this for years, a box of colored felt pens. And you pick a colored felt pen that matches the edge, and then you actually color, actually, I think over here you can see it, you color the edge with the felt pen. So you just run the felt pen around. So this is what it looks like when you cut it out using an X-Acto knife. This is what it looks like after you run the felt pen around the edge. And it's so thin that when you put it up, because you don't see the white, it actually works real well. And then you can just take that sign, you can weather it, you can print it, cover it with Del Coat, and it's a really easy, quick sign and very inexpensive. We can do exactly the same thing for decals. So this is a set of decals I created for Wilder Ranch. You can see I create them in different levels of lightness. So this is actually, you put a white box above it and kind of lighten it. And what that does, I did a bunch of designs of things, and you can now create this decal that goes on the wall. The way you create those decals is you create an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And that 8.5 by 11 sheet, then when you print it out as a decal, can actually provide you, a lot of decals for a building. One of the things that I want you to notice here, and I don't think I've got this very well shown, this is the text for the decal, just standard. What this has over here is it has a white overlay of a bunch of kind of distressed pieces. And so what that does is it lets you actually, if you look at the California Powder Works, you notice that the letters look like they're slightly faded. The way you can do that is you actually create, and I created this object, it looks like this. It's basically a bunch of little things all colored, and you put them over the slide, and instead of being colored, you make them white and you make them semi-transparent. And what they do is they block some of the black. So when you go to print the decal, it's going to look faded. So you can play with actually doing this. So if you look at, this is actually how that slide printed out. I made the orange background orange, but you notice these white things that are on here. What those do is those basically make this California Powder Works actually look faded. So it's not actually like solid text. So you can play with this as how to make things very easy or very, very believable. Some decal sources, you can obviously buy them on Amazon. The Tango Papa is a site that sells decal paper. Richard Brennan, who does decals professionally, uses them. They're very good paper to use. Micromark also has decal paper. The other thing that I want to talk about real briefly is large prints. So one of the things is with a 56-inch wide scale height, you can actually do a very large slide. So Costco used to have a belt printer, a large printer. You could do 60 by 20-inch slides. And so, I've actually done, oh, I lost those pictures. That's interesting. Some large prints that way. So, this is, if you went to any one of the trade shows or train shows, this was actually the sign we did. So this was done as, again, a 56-inch wide slide. And when it prints out in the large size at 300 DPI, it's fairly high resolution. So if you've seen the banners at the convention or at the trade shows, That's how they were produced. Produced these signs for the club in Pleasanton. The last thing, and I'll do this very quickly because I know we've taken a bit of time here. One of the things I find PowerPoint's really good for is arranging your research pictures. So this is, again, for some models I built. What I've got is all the research pictures that I've done for the models in there, and actually use this to design the buildings, and design, different things about how the buildings get built and how they get laid out. So you can, on each slide, for example, you can put, how the building's designed. You can then go in and pick pictures and lay them out. So these were my pictures of Moss Landing, and I keep them all in one place. So as you grab pictures, instead of storing them as photos, you can store them in PowerPoint. They're going to be stored at the resolution you got them at. And so you can use them as you go to design and build things. So that was basically the presentation. It's a great tool. You can use Google Sheets, Inkscape, other commercial drawing packages. But, I think it's a great way to get your modeling and get exactly what you want. So with that, I'll stop sharing, and we lost a few folks. I hope that was interesting.
That was great, Phil. I use PowerPoint and Publisher quite a bit, but I learned quite a few things here. So thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
I think there's some great techniques for folks to use. So I assume there are no questions since it's probably overwhelming amount of information, but.
No, I've used them both as, drawing tools like you've done, but not to that extent. So I got some new tools in the arsenal here.
Cool.
So thank you for putting that together.
You're more than welcome.
The last thing, but you had all the Moss Landing stuff. That's all one PowerPoint presentation.
One PowerPoint presentation. I just find it's really easy. Like when you start going and looking for pictures, just drop them in and dump them into the presentation and just keep them there.
That's good, because usually I create folders. Then you got to go page through what's in the folder to find the picture you want.
And here let me give you a second. I'll actually open that folder or slide. It will take me a second to find things. I obviously have too much stuff on my computer.
None of us have that problem.
So this is my, I kind of kept this. You'll notice
you need to share the screen.
Oh, I need to share. I'm sorry. I stopped sharing. No, that's the wrong screen. So one of the things that you'll notice right off the bat here is this is version 10 up at the top. You can't see it very well. Oh, there it is. There it is. So this is V10. So I tend to give versions and then I throw them away when I don't think I need them anymore. So, this is actually, I started at the top. This is actually all drawn in PowerPoint. So this is actually a drawing of the module, and it's done all the same way. I mean, these are, this is a tree. If you look at the tree, it's basically, I'll grow it up so you can see it. It's basically, yeah, this is a cloud object. Again, if you go up here, if you kind of go down through here, somewhere there's a cloud, and I grab the cloud object. I don't know where it is. I think it's this one here. There's a cloud object. I can fill it with blue. And so you can use those kind of objects to build things like a tree or whatever. One of the nice things about this is you can throw it into slide sorter. So down here at the bottom where you've got the slideshow, most people know that this is the slideshow thing. This is actually sees the slide. The one next to it is called the slide sorter. And that brings up all your slides in this little view. And so as you just build these up, as you go grab pictures, you just, put those pictures each in a slide, and you can go back and find them pretty easily. And I find it's much easier than keeping images in a file folder, because when you go in the file folder, you're trying to see them there. Here you can look and say, oh, I like that one. Let me go back and see, well, no, I really want to go look at this one here. And again, all of these images, when you actually go look at that image, it's stored at the image size that you got it off the internet.
That's cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to start storing pictures that way now.
Cool.
I like it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Well, that's kind of all I had. So unless someone else has something interesting, I think we'll probably close it out for today.
Sounds good. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for watching this Coast Division eClinic. More Coast eClinics can be found on the Coast Division YouTube channel.